Hi there, this is John Bishop. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Nancy Flournoy, and this is our Saturday morning LifeWave coffee and testimony. So what I thought we'd do, we might have some more people getting on, but I thought I'd jump into this little video. I'm not going to show all of it, but it's an interesting video. It's called The Light of Life. And the speaker, Michael Claridge, goes into some interesting things about light that I never knew before. So I'm going to share that, and hopefully it'll come in loud and clear. Okay, let's see if that goes.
In the early 1920s, Alexander Gurevich in Russia was experimentally exploring the idea that all life emits and is embedded in a morphogenic field. At one point, he took 2 onions out of the ground, careful to preserve their root tips, because the root tip has the highest rate of mitosis. The cells are dividing fastest at the tip. He pointed the tip of one root at the middle section of a second root. The cells in that middle section of the second root then started to divide much faster. He further experimented with blocking the effect and found that if he put a barrier between the two, he could stop the effect if the barrier blocked ultraviolet wavelengths of light. Here was the first modern experiment showing that living cells emit light and that this light can directly change the behavior of other cells. Today, you can verify that your eyes emit light by purchasing a Hamamatsu photomultiplier and going into a completely dark room and pointing the photomultiplier at your eye. Living systems emit light from ultraviolet to very low frequency radio waves. Different tissues emit different wavelengths at different times and at varying intensities. Why is this not more obvious? Well, I would argue that it is, since we've all noticed the light in someone's eyes, or have said things like, she has a glow about her, or you were simply radiant. If we would all trust our own experience more, then science could progress much faster. The amount of light given off by creatures varies quite a bit, from a few photons per second to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands per second. That places the intensity in the range of walking in a dense forest at night when things are really dark, but somehow plenty of nocturnal animals do just fine. What is this bio-light doing? Here are a few examples. Over the winter, a seed will not emit any light. As the rain falls and the temperatures rise, in the quiet darkness of the soil, the seeds start emitting light, green light, up to 10,000 photons per second. Another example, put someone in a dark room, shave off a bit of the hair on the scalp and place a photodetector against the area of the visual cortex. Take a baseline reading. Ask the person to imagine a bright light. The photon count will immediately shoot up. Your brain gives off more light when you imagine light. The light emissions from the entire human body were recorded periodically over the course of a year. The entire body brightens in the summer and is darkest in the winter. Within a single day, the body brightens as the sun goes to its zenith, then the body gradually dims as the day moves to night. The light emitted from the center of the body stays the most constant, while the hands and the head show the most variation. The colors emitted are centered around green, but go to blue and yellow. But the light from the center of the palms is shifted slightly more to the blue. Our blood is constantly emitting light. Blood that had a higher immune response, in this case carrying more neutrophils, had a measurably higher photon count. To our alert biomedical viewers, this is probably the best area to look for new diagnostic techniques, as you can be absolutely certain that the complex rainbow of colors given off by our blood perfectly reflects the ever-changing physical and emotional state of our organism. Diving into individual cells, biophotons travel from mitochondria through microtubules. When I was in graduate school, it was just observed that microtubules were used by cells as highways to actively transport materials to where they were needed in the cell. And now we know that those tubules are also carrying light. We've also found that single neurons act as waveguides for visible light photons. Neurons not only behave as electrical wires, but also act like fiber optic cables. Light and electricity are really two sides of the same coin, so we probably should have seen that one coming. In the old picture, any light present in biological systems was just the random thermal energies. And yes, there's plenty of that. But now we see that specific biological processes are initiated by specific frequencies of light, which are emitted at specific times and places. The biology of light is just as regulated as the biology of molecules. We're down to the final two experiments. My runner-up favorite is based upon the fact that when you are in bright light, your brain emits more photons. Take two people, place them in the same room, along with an antenna which emits a weak oscillating magnetic field. Person one then stays in the room while person two goes to a second room, which is completely dark. Shine a bright light on the first person. The second person's brain will immediately emit more biophotons. This only worked if the two people first shared the experience of being in the same oscillating magnetic field. I read this paper over 6 months ago, and I'm still wondering what it means. Before looking at my favorite experiment, let's discuss things a little. Life emits light. In some cases, we see the light is doing specific work, such as initiating mitosis. If humans were nocturnal creatures, this would all be obvious, as the luminosities are roughly that of a forest on a moonless night. We have light shooting out of our eyes. The ground below us is radiant with the ultraviolet light of root mitosis. For those with a classical bent, you might be saying, Plato was right once again. Plato said that in human vision, light goes out from our eyes and blends with the light coming from objects, and the combination results in what we see. Now we have proof that our eyes emit light. To a physicist, this was always an obvious possibility, since all receivers are also transmitters. A radio antenna can send a signal or receive the same signal. It has to work both ways. The rhodopsin molecules in the retinal cells can absorb visible light. Therefore, they must also be able to emit the same visible light. Why might the light coming from our eyes blend with the light coming in? To answer this, we can look at how the ears work. Decades ago, it was found that our ears emit sound. This was shelved as an interesting oddity until someone wondered if there might not be some purpose to it. They found that the ears emit sound for the purpose of actively producing signal canceling and signal enhancement. Ever wonder how it is in a crowded room you are capable of focusing in on one conversation, even someone else's conversation several feet away? It's the same principle as the noise canceling headphones, but several light years more advanced, as your auditory system somehow knows where is the voice you want to hear. How far away is it? How long does it take for the sound to travel the distance between your two ears? And then in real time, as the sounds in the room keep changing, your eardrums emit a sound signal that will reduce everything else and enhance the particular voice you want to hear. The same is happening with your vision. I've not found the research yet, but it will come along soon enough. How is the biology of light different from the biology we learned in school? 100 years ago, people did not much think of biology as a chemical process. Yet everyone listening to this lecture was educated inside the biochemistry paradigm. We were taught that biology is only a chemical process. What do we mean by biochemistry? Take the example of a cell needing to build out some new bits of its machinery, such as a new ribosome. Ribosomes are the primary machinery that cells use to build all the other proteins the cell needs. This requires raw material, enzymes, and an energy source. Imagine the new ribosome is almost completed, and just a final bit needs to be attached. The final required bit of protein is there, hanging around. The precise enzyme needed for just this final attachment also happens to be there. And the ATP molecule is also hanging around. And then they all come together. Energy is released from the ATP molecule, travels to the enzyme, and the final bit of ribosome is added. Biochemistry.
So I thought I'd end it there. That's 10 minutes of that 20-minute video. And I can put it in the chat too if, well, actually people can't see it because except for Nancy, but you have that one already.
Yeah, I have it.
So yeah, that's a good video. I like the way he explains everything. It's very easy to, for I think just average people who don't know a lot about chemistry to understand, about how light works. And it's like I like especially the part about the, for instance, our eyes or our ears are like transmitters, but also receptors. They can, you can't have one without the other. That makes a lot of sense, but I never really thought about that before. Okay.
And I had seen this on one of the meetings, and I had not realized it's much longer. So I hadn't actually seen the whole thing. I'm going to watch the rest of it when we're finished here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So Nancy, you got any testimonies this week from using any of the patches or?
Well, just I think I mentioned the other day that we are focusing this month on the SP6 with the newfound information that the newly recognized information that the spleen meridian, the stomach meridian, is a straight shot into the hypothalamus, and that by going directly into the hypothalamus, it can reset a lot of things. And so we're not just using the SP6 patch by itself, though. I'm using other patches in conjunction with it to try and get more blood flow to the brain. And so I've been trying the X49, but I'm going to start rotating that with the carnosine, because we know that operates in the brain to fix the nervous system. And it's an exploration. We'll see what happens.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the experiences that I've had last couple of days, they're not dynamic or anything like that, but I've been using the carnosine almost every night. I didn't used to use it at night. I'm starting to use it, and I put it here. And I think this is a C6, I think. And yeah, I'm just waking up in the morning, having this almost like feeling like popping out of bed feeling, it's just like, whoa, I'm ready to get up. Whereas sometimes I'd have that just, I think I'm gonna stay in bed a little bit longer. And so that, do you have any comments about that carnosine, why that I might have that effect?
I don't know, but I was going to say, I keep wishing that I felt like I stayed in bed longer, because I wake up and feel like getting up and I'm going to bed.
Sometimes it's good to stay in bed and just,
Yeah, but I always like to have that option, but, to wake up like at 5 o'clock in the morning when the sun's up or the lights come in, and then to feel like I want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning is a little bit of a trip on my mind.
I think light has a lot to do with it, because I looked out my window again today and it's gloomy. It was raining a little bit, and I think that influences as well, because when we see light coming in, through the window, it helps to activate us as well. But of course, this morning,
the carnosine, I think, is just a really interesting patch, because what we've seen, like with pain, is that the ice wave, works wonderfully on arthritic and structurally caused kinds of pains, or rheumatoidally associated kinds of pains. But really, we've seen numerous examples now where if a nerve itself is damaged, the ice wave doesn't seem to touch the pain, whereas the carnosine does.
right.
And so that direct connection that it has between the health of the nerve cells and the fact that it can cross the blood-brain barrier, whereas I haven't heard it said that any of the others can. Of course, stem cells can, but
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the one thing that came out in one of the studies is that blood-brain barrier effect, because it is hard. I guess it's hard for even
well, it's protection. I mean, the whole thing's created so that you can't get garbage into the brain.
So it must be a vibration.
Vibration, yes. The magnetic field, the vibration, and that seems more and more, as we understand it more from these videos and things that we're watching, it's obvious that you can accomplish a lot without going across the blood-brain barrier. And so that's pretty exciting. But the carnosine, except in the cases where I have the testimonies I've personally heard of, cousins several times, where there has been nerve pain that seems to be direct, pretty instantly relieved, if not taken care of entirely by the carnosine. It's a little hard to measure the effects. I mean, it's inside your brain, so we don't have a lot of measurements that are taken about our brain, and if we do, it's not in any regular space thing. So no, it'd be interesting, given you're talking about maybe something with a longer period of time. I mean, I've been using the carnosine pretty regularly, at least in rotation with Leonard, hoping to see some good effects, but I can't claim success.
At night, correct? You're in the evening. You're putting also.
I've rotated, and I'm doing it for several years now. So I, sometimes at night, sometimes during the days. I was keeping it pretty close to the face,
right,
like particularly on the back, so someplace where it'll go up.
Right.
And just now recently, just starting, I haven't done it yet, but my new thing will be to use it with the SP6 to try and get directly into that part of the brain where his damaged vessel is.
Right. You're also using the eye patch, right? Sometimes putting on the patch.
Well, I'm using it, but Leonard's not. That's a little more compulsive than he's being. So I wish he was. So I've started actually with Leonard putting fairly often putting the energy patches on his temples, because that's I have more control over that than him taking the initiative to put a patch on, put the eyeglasses on when or the eye covers on when he goes to bed.
Yeah, I was thinking too about, it's because you've given that Silent Nights patch webinar several times, and you always talk about sleep and how important it is, and how at night when we sleep, that's the time when our body is in a state when it can heal itself more than as when we're awake, because all of our body functions are working. But when you're asleep, your body is not doing that. It's not supposed to be doing all.
Well, one thing, they stress sleep a lot, but one thing that should be recognized is that you can be wide awake and in the delta state. I mean, you can get to it through meditation, you get to it through brainwave training. It's not actually required that you be asleep and be in that healing state, although that sleep is a really handy, natural way to get there without doing other things. But I say that with the idea that, I think I've said it before, that time between 3 and 5 in the morning, which is, you're likely to be in that state, And I often make a point of going into that state at that time, because it is that time that's so, it's just so precious with respect to healing.
Right.
And I think I've said before that Leonard and I will argue over whether I'm asleep or not. And I will say, I absolutely am not asleep. I'm wide awake. I'm perfectly conscious. And he will say, you are snoring. And I will say, I am not snoring. I can hear, I'm alert, I know what's going on. And we go back and forth. And obviously, I'm in some state because I don't hear myself snoring. But I'm very actively involved in my healing process.
Right.
I mean, I'm really focused on what my body wants to do, what direction it wants to go, how it wants to move, what it wants to let go of. And it's also 3 to 5 is the liver, at prime function. So it's when you're doing your major detox.
Right.
And if I wake, some people say they get up in the middle of the night, they, they'll then go read a book or, whatever, and then go back to sleep. And, I did that when I was young too, didn't know any better. But now, whether I am really wide awake or not, I make sure that I keep my eyes closed and I lie there and I don't get up. No matter how wide awake I feel, I take advantage of that really special time of the day when one can heal.
Yeah, I've done that too. I've just kind of got into that, couple of hour period where actually a lot of inspiration can come. You almost feel like you're in a different vibration. It's like a different you are.
You are.
And it's a really nice space, especially if you go through that and then 5, 6 o'clock and you're coming out of it and the sun comes out and you just feel alive. You just feel like, oh my gosh, isn't life wonderful or something like that. And I think getting into that state helps people to feel that. It's almost euphoric in a way. New day is starting, whereas sometimes when I don't sleep as much as some of my children do. They sometimes when they get a day off, I was just always amazed. They sleep until like 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, oh my God, what a waste, because I would be doing something at that time. But sometimes I don't catch that time in the morning when the day's just beginning. And recently I've tried to catch that more. And it's almost changed. It's almost like engage it like week to week, how much more productive I'm being because I take advantage of that time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My brain it kind of wants to work.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree. And it the magic of that time, again, this, sort of in the zone, but alert. There were many times, particularly when I was still working, where I would feel so alert that I was concerned about being able to get up and go to work. It's like please let me go to sleep because please let me go to sleep because, I need to do something at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And then when I did wake up, I was alert. I mean, I really had gotten my good night's rest, even though I had been fully conscious during that period of time. And that's pretty regular now, as you say. I may have had this time where I have this healing experience, but when it's time to wake up, whatever that means, I'm ready to go. And it still stuns me because, I think I should be groggy from not having been unconscious.
Yeah. Well, they also did a study that, and this is kind of shocking to me, but as people get older, like us into our 60s and 70s, what they're showing is older people actually don't need as much sleep. They don't need as much sleep. They're actually more, they can get less sleep and act, whereas young people, it's different. If young people, especially like, I think they were saying like kids that are going, girls and boys are going, kind of through their teenage years, if they don't get like 7-8 hours sleep, and they're the ones that have to go to school.
But see, I don't know what they mean when they say that. You don't, I mean, I can remember my grandmother saying, I don't sleep much anymore. But,
I don't know. That's just the thing, is that it seems that.
I don't know what they're measuring to say you don't need it.
Right. Or
I mean,
it's just like I think they were comparing it to younger people, where because they're in a process of their bodies developing and growing, there's a lot going on. Of course, sometimes young kids they're like focused on a lot of studying and maybe sports, things like that, activities that take a lot. And so you need it.
But we also know that again, we have a lot of healing to do, and we have our bodies not making all the hormones. There's a lot of stuff it's not doing like it should do.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I'd have to know a lot more about what they're actually measuring to want to really believe that. Again, I'm not quite sure what sleep
I want to
is.
know a little bit more about that too. That would be a good one for the next for a future webinar.
Okay, yeah, we should start a list because we got a couple more, maybe 3 more to go, I think, and we'll be finished with the round of patches specifically for this time. And
Right.
we can take up special topics like, detox or sleep or, topic oriented subjects. So if you think of things like that.
So yeah, Nancy's next meeting will be this coming Friday, and
On Alavida.
the Alavita patch. So I hope people listening to this recording can tune in Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear that webinar by Dr. Flournoy. So
Nice having coffee with you, John. Or tea. Nice having tea with you.
Oh, I had a coffee this morning. Okay, Nancy, have a good.
Okay, thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.